this past week, I told you I did Tiger Belly podcast last week, and then it aired this past week with Bobby Lee. And, man, I didn't realize how long I've known Bobby. Like, comedians, man, we're like all frats. And Bobby was definitely in my frat. We started together in San Diego at the Comedy Store in La Jolla. But just some of the stories, and it was funny because all these years, there was one story I always wanted to ask him, and I finally found out the truth that Bobby was lying to all of us. Because you got to realize, when you start doing stand-up, I mean, those are the best memories to me. It's not, because it's not about the money. It's not about how many tickets you sell. It's just like, how they used to do in San Diego on Sundays, you would have to call the Comedy Store at like 2 o'clock. And then at like 5 o'clock, you found out if you made the list for open mic night. And I'll never forget, like, when you get that phone call, when you call them back at 5 and they're like, you made the list, you're 9th of 10. You're like, oh my God, butterflies start flowing. You start pacing around the room, start making phone calls to a couple of your boys. Hey, want to come to the Comedy Store tonight? Want to come to the Comedy Store tonight? And it sucks because when you don't make it, you feel like your whole world just crushed. You're like, why did I make it? But you got to realize everybody's trying to get on open mic night. And Bobby was one of those people that when I first started doing stand-up, he was always there, and he always wore these overalls with no shirt, and his hair stood straight up. And he was just different. He's the same dude he is now. He was just younger and trying to find his way. Because it was funny because when you go open mic with people and then you start doing these one-nighters around San Diego, everybody's doing the same material, basically. Everybody's got like 5-10 minutes tops. So you know what they're going to say. And then when somebody does a new joke, you're like, holy shit. Where'd you think of that? How'd you write that? So Bobby was the first one of my group that got to L.A. first, got quote-unquote a break, because Pauly Shore came down to the Comedy Store in La Jolla late 90s, and I think Bobby got to open up for him. And then Mitzi, Bobby's mom, who used to run and own the Comedy Store, she asked Bobby to come to Vegas to open up for Pauly. And I guess we thought it was just Bobby and Pauly. Now that I did Tiger Belly, I found out it was a couple other comics on it too. But after that show is when Mitzi asked Bobby to come up, be a paid regular in L.A., and that was a big deal back in the day. If you ever go to the Comedy Store in L.A. and you see the wall, you got to be a paid regular to have your name on the wall. Mine's not up there. I've never become a paid regular. That's a whole nother story. If you want to know that story, go to Tiger Belly, and I tell the whole story. But Bobby I remember we was all waiting on pins and needles for Bobby to get back from Vegas. And we were like, I think he was there for Friday and Saturday. So Sunday is open mic night again. And, of course, Bobby came in. I remember he walked into the Comedy Store, and it was a different aura about him. We was all looking at him like, dang, almost like The Last Dragon. when Bruce Leroy had the gold around him, like, and then you see him glow. It was one of those things. And we used to go to Dennys in Pacific Beach and write jokes and just bullshit, just talk, a bunch of comics. And I remember we was all just waiting, like, Bobby, tell us what Vegas was like. Tell us like being in front of all them people at a theater, because everybody in our group, we've never performed to more than like 50 people probably. And I remember Bobby just telling us this wild story, and then he told me he lied. He told us a story that he went to Vegas. They went to an after party. Everybody was there. And in my mind, I got the whole theater leaving and going into some ballroom, and everybody's just there mingling, and they're all kissing your ass. You're so funny. You're so great. That's how I pictured an after party after a comedy show, like of that magnitude, because late 90s, I mean, Pauly was huge. And so I got this thing like all these girls are coming up, agents are coming up, movie producers coming up, just handing Bobby their cards, like, call me, we're about to put you in this, call me. And so Bobby tells this outrageous story of how he picked up these two girls. They came back to his room. They're messing around. They tie Bobby up on the bed and rob him. And then he's just stuck there, like he's tied up to the bed and feet and arms tied up. And the maids had to come in the next morning, and that's when they untied him and let him go. And I've held on to that story 20-some years. And I finally asked him, and he finally's honest with me. Because I think I might have asked him in the past, but I hadn't talked to Bobby in 10 years before I did Tiger Belly. And he finally told me the truth. Complete lie. The whole story was a complete lie. He said some waitresses came from the Comedy Store, and they put their stuff in his room, and something ended up missing. Other people came into the room, and shit was missing. And Bobby just kind of took that and turned that into I got robbed and tied up by a couple chicks. And I'm telling you, we all ate the story up at that Dennys in Pacific Beach, and we all was like, I can't wait to get tied up. We was all like, oh, that's what stand-up is? I can't wait to get some girls in my room and they tie me up.